Okay, so this is the Raspberry Pi version B, revision 2. One with the two mounting holes is revision 2, the newest one. Two holes here, mounting holes. I made my own open case, open platform here, and it's got two holes, two mounting screws here. And I'm going to show you how much power it takes with a meter. And what I did was wire it to a modified USB cable here. I cut the positive here so that to tap into it, tapped into the positive line here, the red wire. What I did was splice it, cut it in half, and wire it to the meter here. And I'm going to show you when it boots up what happens. So during boot up, see it's red, booting up, and it's taking up okay, it's 350 milliamps, 360 milliamps approximately. During boot up with no perfos, just the card slot here, the SD card, and nothing else plugged in. It's using 36, 37, 360, 370, 380 milliamps. Okay, and or is just an extension cord of the it's a USB extension cord that goes from here to the plug-in, the AC adapter. And what I did was stripped out all the shielding, and the shield this is actually the shield that's covered by tape. And as you can see, there's the various wires here. The data, which is green and white, is data, and the black is negative, and positive is the red one. What I do is cut it. Now that it's settled down, it's using 320 milliamps. Okay, so with, let's say, the Ethernet, didn't go up by much. See the Ethernet lighting, see the extra, the green and yellow LEDs in there. So the Ethernet is plugged in, RJ45 cable is plugged in, and not much difference. So let's connect to that, see what happens. So I'm going to shut it down now. And to shut it down, all I did was still no keyboard connected. No keyboard, nothing, just the Ethernet RJ45. And what I did was put in shutdown. All I did was type shutdown. I did was connect to it and then type shutdown. So now that it's down, it's using still 110 milliamps. For some reason, it still uses 120 milliamps even when it's off. And it's off, it's cold. Now the processor is lukewarm. The USB, the peripheral controller is still a little warm. Even though it's off, it's still using in standby off or whatever it is. It's still using 110 milliamps. So okay, let's plug in some stuff. Let's see. So we take out the Ethernet here. We'll take out the network card. So the Ethernet is out, and I have two Wi-Fi connectors here. Wi-Fi adapters here. One is the EDI Max. Let's see. This guy here. And the Asus USB-N13. That's what happens. This little guy. Okay, which barely sticks out, is the brand EDI Max 150 megabits second, model EW311U. So let's see what happens when we plug these things in. So let's see what happens when we plug in. Let's say, let's just start with the big one here. As soon as I plug it in, see what happens is it starts booting up. And already it's using 400 milliamps. When you plug in something, somehow I guess it uses a lot of power and it just triggers the thing to start. It's just booting up already. Because it's almost like a short, since it's used so, since the USB supplies so little power, it's almost like a short circuit when you plug it in. Because it's not supplying enough power to power the USB and the Raspberry Pi at the same time. So when you plug in anything, it just uses a little bit more power than it's able to supply, and so it takes it as a short circuit. Any kind of interruption causes it to reboot. When you plug in a USB device, when it's already on, it just resets. So it's booted, and it's using almost 500 milliamps. Okay, and so let's just. And so let's start transferring some files there. You see it's idle right now. The Asus adapters is idle right now. The Asus the N13 adapter. Okay, and it's using about 490 milliamps. It's not transferring, so let's transfer something. It's using 560 milliamps as it's transferring. Okay. $530, $540, peaking at 570 and 580 milliamps. Still less than 600 milliamps. Under 600 milliamps. As it's transferring. Okay. So let's shut it down and try the other one. So I'm gonna cancel that. As soon as I cancel that, let's see what happens. Goes down a little bit. Goes back down a little. Alright, just shut down. Holds now. And so it should go back to 110 milliamps. So as it disconnects, you'll see the power drop again. And yeah, if I have other USB adapters, I should show you. Failed. See, it went down to 110. Nothing with or without the peripherals. I've had this guy who failed. Probably uses too much power. Here's the Alfa. There's the model name. You see that? Okay, this is the one with the big antenna. Okay, this one sends out much more power than, and of course obviously it doesn't work. It's taking out too much power there. Is the DLink. Okay, so BWA140NA for North America. Okay, so DWA40. And this one worked also, but it uses quite a bit of power, slightly more than the Asus. Slightly more. It went about 600 milliamps or so idle, and it peaked just under 700 milliamps. So a little more power, but with nothing plugged in, no peripherals, just this guy, it worked. I was able to connect with no keyboard, no Ethernet, RJ45, nothing. Just this guy by himself. I was able to connect wirelessly. Okay, so this works, but just be sure to not plug in anything else. Here, this guy, well, let's just see this guy here. This guy surprisingly used more power than I thought. The Tenda this guy here, W311U, surprisingly used quite a bit of power. for a little guy here. It's probably we could just spend this time amplifying the signal. Okay, so I don't really recommend this guy. And also it disconnects after you use it for a while, for like a few minutes, it just disconnects and it just never reconnects. So it's not reliable. This guy also W311U. So this one also whatever. Not really. I don't recommend. So I only recommend the Asus and the EDI Max. Okay, so let's plug it in. Okay, let's plug that in. Okay, so let's plug in the little guy. So 110 milliamps. Plug it in, and again, once again, as soon as I plug it in, it switches itself on. And it's 280, 290 milliamps. Okay, so with this guy plugged in, it hardly uses any amount of power as it's booting. Okay, 45, 450 milliamps, almost 500 milliamps, but never reaching 500 milliamps. 450. Look, goes down to 260 milliamps. So that's only slightly more than with nothing plugged in. Okay, so remember when I had nothing plugged in? It's still loading, and as it's still loading, it's still only using 400 milliamps. So this guy, highly recommend it. The EDI Max. When it's idle, it just flashes on and off. It's kind of not very useful. It just flashes on and off. It's kind of annoying, actually. It looks like it's doing something, even though it's not. When it does something, it just flashes, flickers. Okay, so let's connect to it and see what happens. So connect to it, root. Okay, so I'm connecting to it, and it's hardly using much. Okay, so let's transfer something. So I'm just gonna copy over something large, like a movie file or whatever. Okay, so as I'm transferring something over, as you can see, it's transferring, and it just peaked at 500 milliamps. Just missed it, but it peaked at 500 milliamps. It's not a quick meter. As you can see, the sampling rate's like a couple of times per second. So if it peaked for like a few milliseconds, it might not capture it. So as it's transferring, you can see it just flickers when it's transferring. Otherwise, it just oscillates from on and off. $500 milliamps, 510. So when it's transferring files, it uses almost as much as other adapters, other Wi-Fi adapters. but when it's not transferring anything, it's so efficient that it's hardly even noticeable. Okay, so I'm gonna stop that and see what happens. Goes back down to 360 milliamps. Okay, and it's cold. It's not that hot.